Welcome to yet another episode of Club Baroness. We are really excited to bring some new content to you here today after a little bit of a hiatus. We're actually going to be shoving a few of the tournaments together here. So first we're going to be talking about the Civil War tournament. And for those of you who aren't interested or are going to be looking for some of the other ones involved, you can skip ahead. There's going to be the 1v1 tournament a little bit later in the broadcast, as well as the tag tournament. And we'll try and include timestamps so you know where to skip ahead if you want to listen to just one tournament. Or if you want to listen to all three, let's go ahead and get it started. So let's talk about the Civil War tournament. But first I'll introduce my co-host here. We have Some Poor Choices.
Hello.
We also have Evolution, who is going to be running the Civil War tournament.
Going on, guys?
And we have our regular host, Guinan, with us.
The one who makes some poor choices.
Let's be honest. We've all made poor choices by being here today.
My parents made the poorest of choices, but continue.
See, he's always got to one-up us on the self-deprecation. It's like some sort of game he plays here. So we're going to go ahead and get started on the Civil War tournament, and that's Evolution's baby here. So go ahead and introduce it in the format to us, Evolution.
All right, so what we have, and it's a rough, very loose copy of the actual movie, but basically the idea that I had was I want to see what happens when you stick a bunch of PD players on the same team who have really had little to no interaction together, especially as a team, and pit them off against opponents with the same handicap. And what I came up with was 4 teams of 8 with a almost like a survivor type elimination style.
But we moved down to 4 teams now, didn't we?
What yeah, it was.
Oh, wait, sorry. It was 8 teams of 4. I had it backwards.
Right, it was originally 8 teams of 4, but we had a lot of issues with people being no-shows. So I figure, fewer teams, more players, you'll be able to eliminate that issue. Plus, it's really what the people wanted. I've had a lot of interest in bigger teams, so that's what we're jumping into. And the format is basically going to be, Team A picks one of the opponents from Team B picks one of the opponents from Team A, and both teams can keep the partner a secret until it's game day. So, you come in, I pick Bragan as my opponent, Bragan picks Reborn as my team's player, and we as a collective team decide we're going to stick poor choices against Bragan, and Bragan says, well, I'm going to have Evolution. So then it becomes Evolution and poor choices are the hidden players that nobody knows about until game day, whereas we already know Reborn and Bragan are going to be facing off against each other. So it's interesting, a lot of room for tactics. It's going to be a little scary at times, I think, and there could be some difficulties with scheduling, but I'm really hoping we can push through this and make it happen.
Yeah, it seems like there was a lot of interest in this, more than I would have initially expected, and it seems like that people are excited to get in on this and get it going. I think a lot of people were really interested in seeing people not playing as set tag teams for a while, now that the tag tournament's starting to wind down a little bit, which we'll be covering more later. But I think that was one thing that excited people, is now that they aren't going to be having to play against dedicated partners quite as frequently, they can kind of play with more random people and get to know more tag styles with more players. What are your thoughts on that, poor choices?
Well, I was actually one of the captains, so I had a lot of strategy going into this. I was trying to pick collections of players I thought could play well together, but also players I thought that were highly adaptable to playing with different people, because you aren't picking your partner. So I wanted people who were able to play well with somebody else. So I tried to get a mix of jumpers and cartwheelers, because we've talked about previously trying to have a balanced team. So I think this is a format that's going to favor adaptability much better than just, these guys have a coordinated deck strategy, which should lead to a lot more different kind of gameplay styles than we've seen, because I think it's going to kind of limit the crazy vicious balance stuff that people run, because you can't really throw that together with a new partner necessarily. But hopefully it gets a lot of these people playing together with players they've never played with, and see where those teams go.
Well, one thing I noticed too that's kind of nice with the big teams is that with 8 players, it's a lot easier to practice in-house. Honestly, you would be able to get together 4 of your own players, and you could develop some new stuff, and then you can practice it against players that you're not likely to face until much further down the road. So you can keep these kind of things in-house, and the other teams won't be able to get a read on you as long as players are loyal to their own teams. Wink. What are your thoughts, Guy? Do you have any other thoughts on the format of this tournament that you'd like to share?
Yeah, we've seen in the current tag tournament. I mean, I think we'll have similar cohesion. Honestly, people have that dedication. They will find time now that the teams are going to be posted to play with those people and develop strategies. But currently, an issue is like, let's say I'm going to play against Bregan. Bregan's one of my favorite scrim partners to try new stuff out. I can't practice against him. I don't, Murder's the only one on my side to help me practice. But with 8 people, we could get multiple rotating teams to practice different stuff and to really get concepts down.
Yeah, I think it'll be a lot of fun. And that said, let's go ahead and move into the teams. I know you had those down first, Evolution. Let's go ahead and introduce the teams and the captains first.
Right, so our 4 captains that we have is, as stated before, is Some Poor Choices. Our next captain is I'm Kanye West, followed by Zexus and Mr. Math 101.
Well, sounds like a good bunch of guys there. And so let's talk about, we'll go ahead and skip the regular order. Let's talk about Kanye's team first.
So Kanye's team is definitely a mix of some interesting players. We have the very first pick was Zexus. No surprises there. Kanye actually got the second pick in the draft. We did a snake style. For those that don't know what it is, it goes if Poor Choices was first, then Kanye, then Zexus, then Math. Math being the final pick would then get the next pick first. Kanye and Zexus will always be rotating first or second and third, back and forth. Whereas Poor Choices and Math rotated to getting 2 picks. One round Math would be in fourth, and Poor would be first, then the next round Math would get 2 picks, and vice versa the following round. So it kept it really interesting, but Kanye's first pick was Zexus, followed by myself. He chose me as his second, and then we went to the Multitude, Wolfo, Killer Mark, It's Orange Baby, and Dear Wolf. And funny note, Kanye made the remark he now has a full wolf pack. He decided on both wolf players.
Yeah,
But,
Deer Wolf and the Wolf Zero, and we don't have to go in like necessarily what order everybody was picked. That could maybe make a little bit of salty feelings in some of the groups, but it sounds like a pretty solid group so far. What are your initial impressions of the group Poor Choices?
Yes, he stole one of my picks, and it made me furious. Sorry, that was bad. But I do really like Kanye's team. There's a couple good things he did. Obviously, picking Evo. You have somebody who can build decks. I don't know if there's too many players that can really compete with Xanxus when he's in top form. I mean, all these players are... I mean, I haven't seen Orange in a little while, and I haven't seen Deer in a little while, but these are pretty solid players. Kanye should be able to work with them and get them on to really get those practice games in. I think the biggest problem Kanye is going to face is I've not seen a lot of these players on at the same time. So I'm not sure how well they're going to coordinate time zone. That might be a big issue down the road, but we will see.
Yeah, we'll have to see how that works out. Any insight you've got on the group, Cannon?
I'm really curious, Some Poor Choices as another captain. What's your plan to deal with Xanxus? He's impressive.
Well, my first round draft pick
Leading the witness there. Leading the witness. It's not
Not
okay.
direct.
I'll
It's
hold
not
you in
direct.
contempt of Club Baroness if this keeps going.
All right, you can fish for compliments when it's time for my team. Talk about Kanye's team real quick.
No, I like we've got some real builders, like Evolution likes to have some tricky bits, but we also have some technical synergistic players like Xanxus, and we're going to see how they kind of maybe rub off on one another. That could be interesting.
Now I gotta say, I'm getting a lot of compliments on my building technique, but I've kind of steered away from that a little bit.
I was going to say, compliment him on his willingness to use Blazing Sword every round, basically.
Yeah, in the 1v1, he was rewarded for anti-deck building.
Well, it's interesting
everyone-
that I'm not assuming his play in 1v1 is going to reflect on tag. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. But I'm taking
Everyone sees me
history
as
tag.
this architect. And I think I'm gonna throw some people for a loop when I come in there and shove a blazing sword up someone's rear end.
We'll
Nice
see.
save.
We'll see.
Let's talk about Zex's team next.
Okay, so for Zex's team, we have Psycho Raven, Hextech Hero, Dreams in Digital, Passing Word, Invoker of Legend, Ether Break, and a Finshu.
That guy's gonna be so tilted. It's Affin Show.
Affin Show. I'm not sure how he prefers it to be pronounced. I
Yeah.
like a Finshu.
He just gets really tilted when somebody mispronounces it, and I love it.
I
So.
believe it's a female
Faux
Xiao Wu.
show.
It got to the point where I was just making it as ridiculous as possible, and I think at one point he became the Swole Epeen Show.
I'm still
So.
saying faux show.
Yeah,
That's where it's
that
at.
that guy is on Zex's team, and I think this is an interesting one. Zexus kind of went in a different path. He didn't really go after the big names real quick, so maybe he has a different strategy that we're not aware of. But there's still some solid players in the group. It's not like he took immediately from the bottom and started drawing upwards.
I think what Zexus did was, I actually respect his pick, so I'm not sure if he did it to this purpose, but I believe wholeheartedly that Zexus really took the experiencing a new game with players he's never played with before completely to heart. I think he really went in deep and tried to play with some players he's never gotten to play with before, and if so, I really hope that brings this community together a little more.
Yeah, if that's what he's going for, then big props to him. It's a good thing to grow the community, and I think that's one of the benefits of this tournament. Is you're going to see some of these newer players get to interact on a competitive level with good players that are going to be able to help others grow, and so I think that'll be fun to watch. And it'll be really interesting to see how Zexus is able to grow his team there. What do you think about that group, Guinan?
From a strategy standpoint, it's actually really interesting because he picked people that most players likely don't have a big read on. And that could do well for him. Even Zexus himself often gets overshadowed by Zexus. Not saying that one is better than the other, but often Zexus kind of takes the show. And so he has a lot of people who go under the radar. And I feel like if they prepare correctly, they could take a lot of people by surprise.
I mean, I think we saw the same thing with Shadow Shield in the 1v1.
Yeah, we'll get
Not
to that.
having
It's
film on people, being very surprised. It's definitely an interesting strategy, and I think it plays really well. Zexus, though, I think is the clear general here, and he might have been going for, hey, I'm the clear general. Let me tell you how to do this. We do this my way. And kind of mold his troops the way he wants them. I mean, I'm not quite sure, but it's Zexus, so you really can't count him out at any given point.
Mr. Z will make a cartwheeler out of Mr. U.
Oh.
Something dark side of the moon. He's got this. Be a man. Let's see. Next group. We'll talk about your group, Poor Choices. Tell me a little bit about you. You know who you drafted, so go ahead and you introduce this group.
Team Best Choices is me. My first pick, Reborn, who I chose over the saltiest person in the world. And then in no particular order, I have Bent Ream, Mirage, Silent, and Goat. So I did put them back together. Mesrath, and of course my boy Kamikaze. So if Zex took the playing with new players to heart, I spit in that idea and completely picked players I was the most familiar with. So of course I play with Kamikaze all the time. Goat and Silent I know play together. Now,
This just in, Poor Choices is toxic for the community.
Now, I mean, I picked players. I know how they play. I know how their play styles kind of work. I think in whatever given order, like I said, I was looking for adaptability, and I've seen that out of a lot of those players. I mean, I have two architects, which I'm really hoping Geigen and Goatrix can put stuff together for the rest of the team. I know that me and Mario and maybe Silent can take a lesson from them and really put something together that synergizes. So that was my plan going into it, and that's what I did with my picks.
I think it looks like a really strong team on paper. One of the things I would note here is it's a really deep roster. where I feel like some others might have some veteran status kind of fall off more towards their later picks. I feel like yours was pretty solid all the way throughout, and so I'm excited to see how your team does. And the thing is, too, is remember that these teams aren't, not one of these teams isn't going to be victorious over all the others. Like at some point, this is all just going to turn into rampant backstabbing, even within teams, and the things are going to get shuffled around. We'll learn more about that format and how it's going to work out later in the tournament. But the whole idea is that there is only one standing at the end of this.
That
Maybe
is
that's what
correct,
Texas
and
was thinking.
that is my favorite part. That actually would be one hell of a strategy. I'm glad you brought that up, Poor Choices, because people seem to be forgetting this is you build up a relationship years only to stab them in the back at the end, and I'll get into that as we progress, like Bregan said. But it's gonna be
So
fun.
I mean, an example here would be, say, Poor Choices plays a match for his group, and then they need to vote somebody out after they lose, right? Poor Choices could go in, throw the match, or play poorly or whatever, choose somebody to come with him or choose somebody from the enemy team that he can't beat, whatever it is. But he goes in and he loses, right? And then he could convince the rest of his team to vote out a big name like Guinan. And but the point is, you could get rid of one of the best players that you would have to worry about later on in the tournament from your own team. So there's a lot of backstabbing that can go on even within teams.
You're worried
And the
about
good
team
news
poor
is-
choices making poor choices. Is that what you're talking about?
The good news is there will be some twists. I'm going to allow for a rule that allows players to come back. This definitely is going to be a tournament that's going to last. This isn't going to be a couple weeks and it's over, because I am putting money into this. I want to make that clear to everyone. There is going to be a first, second, third prize. So don't take it lightheartedly. Play your best and strategize. That's the name of the game for this, is strategy.
Yeah, and so let's talk about the last group then, Mr. Math's team.
Mr. Math's team is quite the scary opponent. To start off, Math was very, very meticulous and on his choices, but let's get it rolling. So we have Mr. Math 101, we have Bregan 123, we have our
This
beloved
team
Jay.
already won the tournament.
We have Jay along with Ghost, Madman, Will Ryder, Forensic Zombie, and Renketsu.
Solid team. What are your initial thoughts when you saw the final draw of that team? Poor choices, since you were one of the other captains.
I really did think it was a really solid team. I think the only mistake is drafting Bregan. I don't know how that's going to work for him going forward. No, honestly, I mean,
First
Jay and
choice
Bregan-
was the poor choice.
Jay, Bregan, and Ghost are obviously very solid players. They've been around forever. Will is solid. Zombie and Renketsu. Renketsu, we saw he was willing to look at his own footage and kind of break down his play style. I think he's going to gain a lot from playing with some of these more experienced players. So it's really a team that I think can come together and benefit from playing with each other, kind of absorb and adapt to new styles. I mean, Will and Bregan probably with the deck building. Math's no slouch himself when it comes to putting together aggression along with Jay. A lot of good synergy possibilities.
Yeah, what do you think, Guinan? Do you have any other insight you'd like to offer on?
So my
Math's
immediate
team.
concern is that I don't think they'll make it out of the semis. I don't think Math will make it out of the semis.
Now, Monkey's not in the tournament, so Math might have a shot.
No, but in seriousness,
Well, this time in this 1v1 tournament, he stepped it up, and the first thing he did was lose 3-0 to Xanxus. So who knows? He could be starting that early.
So, actually, though, one thing that I think this team has a lot of it is a lot of play. There's people who are on often on this team who will be able to build a lot of synergy and get a lot of practice. We see that teams that don't get out enough just might not, be in top shape. But, like, Invoker and Will I see on all the time. Bregan doesn't have a life. He's always in the game. Yeah, so I can see
If you're like pausing for a reaction shot, sorry. Nothing.
No, I mean, that's just
That
the
was a
thought.
little low blow.
He has a life. His wife's cool, at least.
So let's see what thoughts are on Dark Horse and winners of this thing, and let's leave out the aspect of the final four. Let's just look at team wise. Who do you guys think are the strongest, and who do you guys think are the Dark Horse that come up?
Well, I think it'll be really interesting to see if Zex's team is able to get some momentum going. I think he'll also, because the way the format, it sounds like it was kind of invented to work out, is that eventually there's supposed to be like two people left on a team, and it kind of moves into some form of playoffs format. And I think Zexus will definitely be a clear survivor from that team, and so he can make a pretty deep run based on that. And also, I think it'll be good because he can help grow a lot of these players. But other than that, like I think some of the big names might be on the chopping block for some inner conflict. You know, myself or Zanxis, Guinan, some of those kind of players might have somebody looking to climb the ladder on their own team. So we could see some of those strong players go out first. So I think it's going to be one of those players kind of in the middle. If I were to pick somebody, somebody you don't normally peg as one of the top 5 players or top 10 players kind of thing, that's going to be able to outlast the voting. Because remember, that's how you're eliminated. It's by voting. You're not eliminated because you lost a game. You're voted off. So it's going to be the players that can fly under the radar and make it deep in the tournament. So maybe somebody like Evolution or Poor Choices, Ghost, somebody that's able to not look like a threat early.
That's my goal, never looking like a threat. I try to play poorly on purpose. It's been happening for years now.
You've mastered it.
What are you guys' thoughts on players that could make it deep in this tournament?
I mean, Zexus's team is the definition of a dark horse. I think you're going to see big names, the XZs, the me and Bregan, have a target on them very early on, and that will manipulate things going forward.
Yeah, just remember, it's not one happy little family. Like, yes, you can practice in-house, but, like, the only way you get eliminated is by your happy little family. So,
Just like Thanksgiving at the Poor Choices house.
so is that your last name, then? Is it just straight up Poor Choices?
Yes.
I actually met a family whose last name was just straight up Fail. They were the Fail family.
That's really unfortunate and kind of awesome.
Yeah.
Like they named their child Epic. This is Epic.
Yeah. This is a little Epic. He's 3 now.
But for me, I've got to agree that Zexus is that's a dark horse team because we really just don't know what to expect. I would be completely lying if I said I didn't think my team was the strongest for personal and very biased reasons.
Thank you, everyone. He rests his case. The defense has the witness. Oh, but yeah, I think that covers most of it. Is there anything else anybody else wants to add on the Civil War tournament, or anything else you'd like to cover, Evolution, before we move on?
No, I think that touches all bases. So one more recap of the teams, if you don't mind. I'll do it one last time. That way, everyone can just get it all at once. So
I'll link to
Poor
a picture
Choices
in the video as well. Continue.
Okay, awesome. So for Poor Choices, we have Gagnon, Gotrix, Kamikaze, Mazrath, Silent, Mirage, and Bentream. For Kanye, we have Xenxus, Evolution, Multitude, Wolfo, Killer Mark, It's Orange Baby, and Deerwolf. For Zexus, we have Psycho Raven, Hextech, Dreams in Digital, Passing Word, Invoker of Legend, Ether Break, and as I like to call him, a Finshu. And for Mr. Math, we have Bragan. For Mr. Math, we have Bragan, Jay, Ghost, Madman, Will Rider, Forensic Zombie, and Renketsu.
The next video I do of him, I'm calling him Big League Chew. It's happening. All right, was that all the teams?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and move on to the 1v1 tournament now. Evolution will stick around with us as long as he's able. I know he's going to have to take off possibly partway through this podcast, but since he's involved in the 1v1 tournament still, we'll do that one before we do the tag tournament. And so let's go ahead and introduce that. I'll re-go over the groups real quick, and you can also bring it up on screen, and then we'll talk about the groups each one at a time.
For Bragan, for this, can we do Group D first then, after the intro?
Yeah, we can do Group D first. I'll start by listing it as well. We have Nathan Zero, Sandal Inc., also known as Collected Dust, Some Poor Choices, Evolution, Psycho Raven, and Monkey. And Group C, we'll just go ahead and go in reverse order. We've got Shadow Shield, Guinan, Filthy, the Wolf Zero, Zombie, and Big League Chew himself. Then we've got in Group B, Kamikaze Mario, Xanxus, Math, Multitude, War Machine, and Renketsu. And then Group A is Murder Mastodon, Esper 51, myself, Invoker of Legend, Mega Master, he dropped out. Jersey Driver rounds out Group A. So we'll go ahead and start with Group D. I think when we talked about this before, because we did a podcast before the 1v1 tournament started, the way this was introduced was a group that had a lot of parity, a lot of players that were of similar skill levels, where some of the other ones you can kind of peg. You're like, yeah, there's 3 that should be towards the top or 4 towards the top. This one, it was pretty much just like all 5, all 6, were up there in skill level, even if you may have had 1 or 2 favored over another. Portraits, would you like to cover some of the results from that group?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think, when we were talking about the predictions way long time ago, I think I came up as a spoiler and Evolution came up as a spoiler, but we were consistently saying, Psycho and Monkey were going to make it out of that group. I think we saw two kind of completely
Sandal
different...
and Monkey, actually.
Or Sandal, sorry, you're right. We saw completely 2 different styles where I got all my matches out of the way really early, and Evolution was probably one of the last ones to play, and I think that helped us both in different ways. We saw, Psycho Raven had a good showing game-wise, but wasn't able to take a lot of matches. Nathan kind of something similar there, but I mean, it was just kind of all over the place. So Sandal beat me, and then Monkey beat Sandal, and then I beat Monkey. So you had a 3-way race for a while right there. Psycho honestly almost beat Sandal.
Yeah, that was a really close match. Psycho had him on the ropes.
There was nobody in this match who wasn't just, who was just done. Like, it was wide open for a long time.
Well, and then Evolution came in like an avenging fire, towards the end of it, and he just started knocking people out left and right. And
no, I think I was helped because no one had really seen me play in a tournament. There wasn't any video, and then Sandal was helped Evolution was helped because he had been able to see everybody's stuff, and the answer he found was a very good answer with his Blazing Rush, and nobody knew to expect that.
For the record, and this is from my own personal experience, I actually didn't watch a single video on any of you guys. I had a lot going on in my personal, so I had a game plan coming into it against Psycho Raven and against the whole squad, really. I was coming in, I was going full force, I was hitting hard, getting it done and over with. And I did that on Psycho Raven. And then you came along, and for some reason I had this brilliant idea, let's change up the game plan, let's go jank, because that's what everyone's expecting me to do, so why not give them a show? That failed. Yes. So then I went back to my original game plan, which was shove a blazing sword up people's rear ends, and I should have stuck with that to begin with, I believe. But
we'll never know.
Kudos to you on the win.
Club Baroness for kids. Sorry, continue.
Well, I mean, I'm just I'm not really defending myself, but more so just explaining myself. Where I really didn't watch any videos on anyone. I asked a few people like, what can I expect? I even think I asked Poor Choices what to expect out of Sandal, and he basically told me just go watch the freaking video, you noob. So I put my phone down. I didn't even bother with the video. I just said screw it. I'm just gonna go in blazing the blazing.
Well, I mean, the thing about the mad scientist of fandomness, as I've been wont to call him lately, is that in a way it is predictable in his unpredictability. Like, you can almost guarantee there's going to be some form of shenanigans at some point, and the biggest shenanigans are often blunted by the biggest rush, which I think it was a smart tactic. I think it worked against other players as well, but especially against Sandal, that was not a pretty match for him because you did put the pressure down early, and he showed that he struggled to deal with it whenever he was trying to run some of his cuter arsenals there. And we barely even got to see what the end goal of any of those decks were against you, honestly.
Right. Those are some fast matches for sure.
And Guinan, we actually haven't heard much out of you. I know you watched some of the Group D matches. What are some of your thoughts on the way this group played out with for those of you, I don't think we explicitly said it. We had a tie 4-1. Evolution and Poor Choices are both 4-1 of the group, but Poor Choices held the tiebreak or the head-to-head record, so he'll be first seed and Evolution second seed. And sorry, go ahead to you, Gunan.
Yeah. So I've like Evolution's one to talk about. Him and Choices, I guess. I mean, everyone's notable, but these are the ones who are making it out of group. So an interesting thing. Let's say that you don't have the time to do all the research. We see some players doing like heavy research, and others just kind of like, this is my thing. You got to deal with it. But if you don't have time to do research, an aggressive rush is one of your best options because it doesn't matter if they're playing Jank, it doesn't matter if they're playing an attrition arsenal. They either get rushed or they don't. It's kind of binary, if you will, and so you don't need to know all the intricacies of their arsenals. Where if I was playing something where I'm trying to stop their plan, that's where you need a lot more of the research, and we see different playstyles like this. Sandal, I loved watching everything from Sandal, just because I want to be like, what's he gonna do next? And it's a great time. It's a great time. Can't wait for the next ones. Has Nathan finished all his matches? I was looking this up. I think he's still got a couple to play. I'm actually really interested in what he is going to finish off with as well, even if it doesn't change the results. As he is like a junior mad scientist sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was definitely a really fun group to watch. I would say, for those of you who haven't gone through and watched some of the games, a lot of Sandals are really exciting in a way that like you get to just see some really wacky stuff. And then
Dragon's
Evolution
questions
also.
don't matter.
Oh, sorry, I was gone for a moment. What were the questions? I had to step away for a moment.
You're good. There's no questions. You were the questioner.
Okay. Additionally, some of the other matches, like I really enjoyed Evolution versus Monkey. I think one of the ways I described it, either after or during the cast itself, is that it was almost like watching a fist fight where they just grabbed each other by the hair and just like punched each other in the face until one dropped. Like it was just back and forth, slugging each other constantly.
And that's another thing that I can attest to my poor decision making is if you remember in the video, both Palace and Panorama, I rushed Monkey and I came out solid, easy victor. And then we got to lane, and for some reason I decided to go with a Jank Arsenal. And you can always see it that's where I start to lose. I believe I went with a Vicious Melon Scream of Evil.
I think you did the same thing that you did against me in that match, or very
Correct.
similar skills. Yeah.
Correct. So I really am honestly. I've taught myself a very hard lesson. Scream of Evil, Vicious Balance is not for the win.
I think meta discussion that we can take a sidebar before we move on to the next group is that one of the big trends I've noticed, because I've watched every single match, because I've done the commentary for I think 99% of the matches almost at this point, 95, something like that, is that the cute stuff is not as good. Playing more standard, aggression, good solid shields and things like that, being able to handle stats, like that's what's been winning people matches that I've noticed. The Flame Sword, the Reincarnation, the Vibration Laser, the Brock Shot. We're not seeing the cute stuff be as effective. Sandal did pull off some really impressive matches. He's kind of like the polar opposite of this strategy, for example, but it wasn't enough to get him out of groups. When he did go up against the most aggressive player in the group, Evolution, it backfired horribly. And I'd say that's pretty much how it's played out in the other groups as well. Everybody who's tried to run the cute stuff has really been punished for it.
No,
What are your thoughts on that?
I think bringing those, you kind of force people to be reactionary. So if your deck needs any sort of wind-up, if you're put on defense and you're forced to be reactionary, you can't be proactive in setting up a strategy. And I think, you see that especially with the rush, but any sort of early aggression or even just, keeping aggression on somebody, how are you going to dig for violent change if you're just cartwheeling flame swords? It's something you can't really do in tag because you can have somebody come bail you out, you can have somebody run distraction or somebody help with pressure, but 1v1 when you have no one to rely on, it's really hard to get around that, to set stuff up.
Yeah, no, it's definitely been my experience as well in the group stage. What about you, Guinan?
I think it's actually interesting. So as I said that aggression is really good if you don't have time to research. I think jank, if you will, only works if you have extensive research on your competition, because you not only need to have a plan, but you need to have a counter plan to whatever they're doing at the same time. You need to have the correct shields, the correct erase, the correct, stat fixers, plus whatever Jinky plan. And if you have a bad read, they're just going to, run you over.
Yeah, I think that's definitely been the trend so far. And speaking of new trends in this 1v1 tournament, let's talk about Group C.
Dude, I'm excited about this, yeah.
Group C has been also really interesting. Poor choices. Would you mind introducing who's leading that group right now, some of the basic records?
Don't have it in front of me. Can somebody else do Group C?
I can do that then. So Guinan, I'll go ahead and read through the names again. We have Reborn Guinan in this group, Filthy, the Wolf, Zombie, the Big League Chew, and Shadow Shield in this group. And when we talked about it, a lot of people kind of had Shadow Shield as a dark horse. A lot of people predicted Guinan to be really dominant in this group. But as we've seen, the results have turned out a little bit different than we expected. What's your perspective on this, Guinan, since this is the group you're in?
I mean, so if I was going to do some introspection, research I've talked about being important sometimes, knowing what you're playing against. This is a small community, and we can often take advantage of this better than any other kind of game. Shadow Shield is a person who came into this, and no one had anything on him. And he took advantage of that, and he took that with his skill and matched those together to not be countered. It was impressive. Myself, I felt, I haven't finished my games yet, but so far being in a scenario where I don't have that research because I don't know 1v1 as much as tag, that part of it I felt like was a personal detriment that I need to work on.
I'll go ahead and translate for the viewers. Guinan felt the wrath of Shadow Shield.
Oh, I'm not even trying to hide that. Yeah, no, Shadow,
No, I'm just playing around,
In a close match, beat me, but it was an impressive match, always around. A really good one to watch.
It was a 3-2-1, and if you're a fan of somebody looking like they've got the tempo advantage just to be hit with a 14 damage Dance of Death or Psycho Burst to end the match out of nowhere, go watch that series, because that's the story of Guinan versus Shadow Shield in a nail-biter 3-2-1 series.
Let's be fair here, though. Let's be fair here. Not all of them were out of nowhere. I mean, who didn't see that Muramasa blade coming and go, you just messed up?
You talking about the refinery one?
Oh, yeah, I remember that one. That one was where I said, I really should dash around. You know what? This is being recorded. Dashing around would be stupid. I don't want to go to time again. Well, I probably should have gone to time again.
As soon as that Muramasa blade came out, I said, this is where Guinan just effed up.
Yep.
Yeah. Pins and needles that entire time, though. I mean, they had a lot of big hit skills that could go either way a bunch of different times.
Well, there was a lot of really fun series in there. Wolf versus Filthy, I think, went 3-2-2.
That was a long one,
I think that was the
Yes.
longest series of the entire tournament so far. A lot of other fun ones, too. I don't remember if the full upload of Zombie versus Filthy made it to the live version. Zombie versus Shadow Shield was also a fantastic set of matches. Shadow Shield does end the group 5-0. We're still waiting to see second seed. We need Guinan to play Wolf. They're both 3-1 right now, and whoever wins that matchup, or excuse me, Guinan's 2-1. But whoever wins that matchup essentially advances from the group. And Shadow Shield, though he ended the group 5-0, wasn't always clean. His cleanest match was probably against maybe Wolf, but he went, I think, 3-2-1 versus Filthy, 3-2-1 versus Guinan, and 3-2 versus Zombie. So he had a lot of long series where he kind of slugged his way through, but he did. He ended up 5-0. So, I mean, you got to give respect to the guy for that. Dark Horse, indeed, not a lot of read on him, but he managed to come out on top.
Oh, he's got the skills. It wasn't just that people didn't see anything from him. I mean, he showed up. He definitely was very solid, had a lot of stuff that people had to react to, very mechanical. I've played with him a few times, and he's got what it takes, for sure.
Yeah, we definitely turned a Dark Horse into one of the top seeds. Like, that versus Esper or Xanxus, that's going to be hype matches.
Well, you do realize you've done that for the last two groups. I mean, y'all's Dark Horse picks were the ones who came out on top.
Yeah, that's true. We did not have the best read on Group C and Group D.
Or A. I believe Esper was our Dark Horse, but not Except for Reborn, who picked Esper not to advance from group, but
I
picked him to
picked
win the
Esper to
tournament.
win the tournament, so
See, I was just trying to eliminate him using morale, but yeah.
I mean, it's really been interesting. I mean, Group D, I'd say it's not so much as a bad read because we did talk a lot about hey, it's kind of anybody's group there, even if we may have favored some other players slightly more highly. But we did see the players that we didn't predict as our top two come out of there. But Group C, definitely the dark horse pick, Shadow Shield really showed up, and we'll have to see now if Guinan's able to, because I think pretty much everybody picked Guinan as first seed, if he'll be able to clinch second seed now, as he plays a resurgent Wolf who has been looking good lately. Had some good matches himself. Put down Zombie pretty cleanly, as well as he had a really long series against Filthy, to be fair. But also clean matches against Big League Chew. Does anybody else have anything else they want to talk about Group C before we move on?
I think not particularly Group C, but one trend that I've noticed, at least with myself, is with the last tag tournament, with this 1v1 tournament, I've been noted as a dark horse, and both times it's lit a fire under me. And I wonder if that's the case with what's been going on, because I notice a lot of the times our dark horses have been coming out on top. Esper, myself in Poor Choices, Shadow. I really feel like there's more listeners to this podcast, and they take it to heart more than people realize. I know I did.
I think
I
it'd
don't
be
like-
interesting to see, yeah, who takes it to heart and who gets that fire lit. I mean, yeah, we have some interesting things. Like Esper went out in round one of the last 1v1 tournament and is looking to make big waves in this one already. But before we talk more about him, let's go ahead and move on to Group B. Renketsu, War Machine, The Multitude, Mr. Math, Xanxus, and Mario. Guinan, would you like to introduce that group and currently their standings?
Well, we've got Mr. Math, aka loses in the semifinals. Xanxus, also known as Hey, I know how to play 1v1. And a spattering of other players that go from long time names to kind of unknown. You know, Renketsu and War Machine have played for a while, but haven't made a strong showing where we knew a lot about them. Kamikazes kind of just recently started picking up in tag, but not in tournament play. Multitude, I mean, he's been around, but a little less lately, so we haven't seen what he could do. But Math and Xanxus, they were kind of our hype players, and they were good matches to watch for sure.
Not Math versus Xanxus,
Except
though.
for playing each other. Everyone else they played, you know.
Math
Still, I
versus
think
Xanxus was a one-sided stomp. I'm surprised Math was even able to get up off the ground after that one.
With this group, though, I think you definitely see the top two pulled really far away.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't want to discount my buddy Mario because his losses are to Math and Xanxus. So, I mean, he could wind up with a higher record if those matches get played. But at the same time, I think Math and Xanxus really kind of quickly pulled out ahead and showed that they were the top strongest two, and everybody else was just sort of left to fight around. Not to say there weren't, big matches, but I know Math and Xanxus both closed them out. I think 3-0s and maybe a 3-1.
Yeah, I mean, Xanxus cleared this group without dropping a single map. I think that's worth talking about. We'll talk more about his tag coverage here later on. He may have recently suffered a loss, but in the 1v1 tournament, he did not drop a single map in his entire group. Not just map. He went 3-0 versus every player in this group, even against Math, who went basically 3-0 against every other player.
So Mario.
Yeah, but when you look at Xanxus, though, like it's so dominant, and there wasn't really any of them that looked close versus Xanxus either. Like I think there might have been one or two matches, like one versus Mario, one versus Multitude, where he might have been on the back foot for part of it. But almost every single one of the matches were just absolutely dominant from Xanxus. I can't stress that enough. Group B was all about Xanxus.
Yeah, we should call it Group X.
Group X. Do you have any insight or anything you'd like to talk about on Group B evolution?
I mean, I'm gonna be real honest with you guys. It's kind of going exactly how I thought it would. I have a little bit of playing time with Xanxus than most. Kanye and I have built up quite the online friendship with the guy. So I have a lot of respect for him, and no offense to anyone in this room or their egos, but I actually believe Xanxus is probably one of the top three, if not the best player on the game right now, overall. Um, and I mean, I really didn't expect anything less. Honestly, if he did lose one map, I'd have been disappointed in the guy. He pulled through exactly how I thought he would. Kudos to the guy.
It's too bad you won't stick around for the last bit of this video. But anyways, carry on.
Yeah, Xanxus has been on fire in that group, and one thing we can say for Xanxus versus some others here whose ego balloon is swelling is he didn't lose to Psycho Burst.
It's true.
Oh.
Are you saying I should bring Psycho Burst next time? Because I'll do that.
No, I'm pretty sure
I'm
you
saying
don't
you
have a
should stop
shield
getting
for,
hit by it.
Oh, that's,
You don't have a shield for Ego Burst, and I think that just hits you for 20 damage.
It's true.
Ego Burst
Ugh.
is doubly effective against Guinan. And with that said, does anybody else have anything else they'd like to talk about Group B?
Nope.
Okay, we'll go ahead and move on to Group A. I won't talk about this one that much because I'm in it. We had Murder Mastodon, Esper 51, myself, Bragan, Invoker of Legend, and Jersey Driver. And I'll go ahead and just say the standings because we haven't done that each time, and we should say the standings beforehand. Esper finishes the group 5-0. Murder finished 2-2, and I was 3-1. Invoker of Legend is, I believe, 1-3, and then Jersey Driver has one match left to play, but he's 0-3 right now.
All right. So this is the one that I kind of predicted the worst. So I'll go ahead and bite the bullet on that one. Eat some crow, whatever else I have to do. So props to Esper. I thought he might spoil it. I did not pick him to be the powerhouse presence that he's been in that group. I thought Murder was going to have a much better showing in 1v1. I still think Murder is a very solid player. Bregan, though, was able to beat Murder and kind of edge out the number 2 well behind Esper's very dominant number 1 showing. I will say, for all those who are listening and have chances to ban things, that Bregan remains unbeaten on Palace and tournament play. Why is no one banning Palace against Bregan? Please, someone do that.
It's over 3 tournaments now. The first 1v1 tournament, the tag tournament, and this
just
1v1
because I
tournament.
make poor choices doesn't mean I don't give good advice. Just someone listen to me once and let's see what happens. Anyway,
You
a lot
ban
of
Palace
solid
and
games.
suddenly I can't win anywhere.
A lot of solid games. If anybody's looking for textbook play, watch any of Esper's matches. He might use very similar arsenals, but he's got 1v1 down to a science, and I think they're really good matches to watch.
And there's some really fun matches in a lot of groups, and I think my series versus Esper was actually pretty fun to watch. If you go back, that most of the others are all casted, but that one's just me and Esper playing banter back and forth, and we played on the very first day, so neither one of us came in with like any real prep except for he always plays 1v1. So that one's a really fun series to watch, watching 2 players who didn't really prepare for each other. They just insult each other the whole time. What are some of your thoughts and on the matches that you watched in this group, Guinan?
I think that there was an interesting, when Bregan and Esper play, they force, a style of play that's different than other games. Maybe you're used to building up to vibration, or you're used to playing jank, but when you play against Esper and Bregan, they're coming at you with a flame sword, a blazing bullet, a rock shot, and that's the game you're playing. You're playing the rock shot game now. You may have wanted to play the sit in my base until I have vibration game. You're not, so you got to deal with it. And it showed to be very effective to take people out of their element. So it's interesting that when Esper and Bregan played, and they both played this rather similar play style, that it that's the only one that wasn't a clean sweep in one direction or the other for them.
Yeah, that one was a 3-1-1, and Esper 3-0'd everybody else in the group, and I 3-0'd everybody else in the group as well. So that was really only back and forth series of Group A.
Yeah. We see some of the other players, things have fallen kind of into obvious slots. My boy Murder, the poor guy needs to work on 1v1. Still a good tag partner, I promise, but he went 50-50. And we've got a couple guys who went in the lower end. We have a very obvious, not just top 2, but the whole group set out. Now, mind you, I will say that if Murder was in maybe a different group that didn't have Esper and Bragan, known 1v1 quantities, maybe could have done better. But that's how, group stage goes, and we have an obvious hierarchy here.
Yeah, and I think it's been a lot of fun here in the group stage, and I think I was a fan of it. It was a bit of a monster to coordinate, but so far we've had pretty good participation with the round robin groups. What were your thoughts on the format and the way it's played out so far? Poor choices.
I loved it. Basically, just getting people, you start off with 5 games, and, you have a bunch of opponents who maybe you've never played against. It just really opens the door to, obviously, a lot of the matches we saw. Props again to Bregan for putting those together and filming them. Everyone who took the time to coordinate that. I mean, that's something, I don't know if we're going to see that out of this game again, but at least we'll always have that.
Well, I think it'll be fun. I think we can hopefully get another tournament like this in.
I'm
And
hoping.
there's a lot of people that are excited, and I think there'll be more participation in some of the following ones. But yeah, I think it's been fun. And I think most people have liked it because the main thing we were trying to avoid was players coming in and playing one match and just being one and done. And it feels like you didn't even play in a tournament. You showed up for 15 minutes and that was it. You got stomped by some vet. You hardly got to play. So we were trying to give everybody at the tournament, everybody who was willing to sign up, which kudos to, especially new players who are willing to sign up and get in on this. We tried to give them more of a chance to be able to play some more people. And we saw some upsets. We saw some players take maps that they wouldn't have normally expected to and gain some valuable experience as well in some of their matches. So I think it was a lot of fun.
I think group stage was a resounding success, honestly.
Let's talk about the remaining players and our top picks and dark horses now that some things have been rattled up and changed a little bit.
Well, yeah, let's before we get into the predictions for the knockout stage, what was your biggest surprise at the group stage? Why don't you take us to start their evolution?
Oh man, poor choices just threw me for a loop, man. I've been playing with him, against him for a while in tag, and I've always considered him to be an awesome guy to play with because he's funny, he's a good sport. But I never really looked at, no offense, but I never really looked at him like, shit, I might lose this match. You know what I mean? And when I played him in 1v1, it threw me for a loop. I came into that wholeheartedly believing it was an easy sweep, and I got my ass tore up. So that was definitely...
I do have to agree to an extent because I play against poor choices a lot, and usually it doesn't go that well for him. But the times where he sits down, he jokes about it like, I'm going to sit up now and say things like that. I'm going to sit up and play serious now. But when he does play serious, I have to admit, there is a visible difference in his playstyle. When he's playing at his normal level, I'll beat him 9 out of 10 times, or even more sometimes. But when he does play serious, as he jokes about, whenever he plays serious, he really does step it up. I gotta admit, I was impressed with him in Group D.
Oh, all those puns just take so much brain power. When I don't have to make the puns, life is just so much simpler. These are the things I do for you guys, though. I do it for you.
Well, you can either do puns of damage or you can do tons of damage. You heard it here first.
Oh my gosh.
I have to admit I ripped that one from somebody else. But, Guinan, what about you? What was your biggest surprise of the group stages?
So you might say that, mine and Shadow Shield's game was a big surprise. But living it, it became very obvious, the respect for the play very shortly into the games. My biggest surprise was probably how one-sided Xenx's first math was. I thought Xenx's had an advantage. I did not think it was an overwhelming advantage like that. That one very much surprised me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to say that was a bit brutal. So we can no longer make fun of Math about losing the semifinals to Monkey. We now can say that he got slaughtered in the first round by Xenxis. Never even made it out the gate.
I'm going to stop saying that because I might end up playing him, and I'm very worried he slaughters me right out the gate.
Oh, well, the good news is for you, sir, you came in first seed, so I will end up more than likely playing him.
Well,
so
no, Math
that.
is a second seed, so Math is going to have to play a first seed. So.
Oh, I meant Xenxis.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, but
you'll
there's
have
no
to-
shame in losing to Xanxus.
We're
There's
just gonna
lots
have
of
a
shame.
we're just gonna have a Group D and Group B date night. You guys are gonna get together, and it's gonna be good.
I have high hopes for Shadow Shield. That's who I'm hoping I get to play. Because if not, I'm probably screwed.
I have high hopes for Shadow Shield, and as in I have high hopes of facing him.
I have a prediction.
Two different things.
On that date night where you get Group D and B together, that Group D is going to put it in Group B.
Really?
Really?
Huh.
Live that up for me, guys,
That's a lot
please.
to live up to.
Yeah.
I'll keep that one in mind, making the bold predictions.
Well, I will
Grinding.
tell you this: if it is Group B and D date night, I stand no chance. So, poor choices. It's up to you. And please, if that does end up being the case, call the police for the sexual assault that I'm more than likely about to receive from Xanxus.
Club Baroness for children. So, what about you, poor choices? What was your biggest surprise in the group stage?
I'm not going to disagree with Evolution. I was very surprised I was able to get through it. I thought I might eke into second place, but I think I had some good matches because nobody really had seen me play, or like you guys said, had seen me play Sirius, and it is a bit different. I was really surprised by Esper, though. Like I said, I predicted him as a spoiler, but he's gone from spoiler to, for me, one of the top two front runners for who I think is going to win this tournament.
Yeah,
I think
Esper never surprised me.
Yeah,
No,
a lot
honestly,
of people
that's what I
expected it from
expected.
him, but I didn't expect it from him, so I was wrong.
I was
Yeah.
with Brayden the whole time. I had a very strong inkling that Esper was going to basically take control of Group A.
I
was
thought
very
so
shocked.
too.
One-on-one
I
ones.
think it could have been a little bit more up in the air if I'd actually come in with some preparation, which I didn't do. But it was still a really fun match, and no matter how much preparation I come into, I think I would still have to favor Esper because it's his element. I play more tag than I play 1v1, even though I run the 1v1 tournaments. And Esper is in his element in the 1v1. So no matter how much preparation I come in with, I would have still favored him as first seed in the group. And for me, the biggest surprise, I'm kind of torn between two. I know we talked a lot about it already. Shadow Shield showing up in Group C was a big surprise. I think I favored him as second seed, but to pull it out and go out with a 5-0, that was really impressive to me. And then the other one that I found to be interesting was I thought Monkey, no matter what, was going to make it out of Group D. I thought there was a lot of parity there, but I thought Monkey was going out at least as first or second seed. And to see him not make it out of groups when he was a finalist in the previous tournament, taking down several big names along the way, that was really surprising to me.
Well, y'all shouldn't have lit that fire up under me.
Yeah. Well, I guess we'll go ahead and move on to the knockout stage predictions. For those who don't already know how it works, a first seed from each group, which is Esper, Xanxus, Shadow Shield, and Poor Choices, are going to face a second seed from another group. So, for example, Poor Choices cannot face Evolution because Evolution is the second seed from its own group. So each one of them is going to have three potential matchups. So Poor
I don't
Choices...
like any of my matchups.
Poor Choices could face myself, second seed from Group A, Math from Group B, or whoever comes out on top, either Wolf or Guinan in Group C. That's the only one that hasn't been determined yet, is the second seed in Group C. All the other ones have been determined. So let's talk about some knockout stage predictions. Let's talk about sweeping predictions first. It doesn't have to be like who wins or anything like that. What is a prediction you'd like to make about the group stage, Guinan? Or not the group stage, the knockout stage.
Right. I have a strong feeling that Shadow Shield is going to upset against another first seed.
You mean in semifinals?
Mm-hmm. Or
we're
I thought first place and
second
second.
seed.
I think that's fair. You're right. I heard you wrong, but I heard you say it. I don't think there's a second seed that can beat him.
Really?
That's what I'm gonna offer. Yeah.
You have so little faith in me.
No,
And
it's not
Evolution.
that. He has so more faith in himself than that he lost. It's not fathomable
Okay.
that another player could beat Shadow.
There you go. That's how it
That's
is.
more accurate.
It's hubris by the transitive property, folks.
My own game aside, I did commentary for a number of his other games and watched him play, and I've been playing tag with him. And I mean, it wasn't just the tournament play. Like, he's a solid player, He's just kind of quiet, doesn't have a tag partner. You don't see him a lot. But all that's making him like the cowboy coming into town at high noon, and he's winning
Firing
shootout.
some big old bullets,
Yeah.
by the way. And I think it's really interesting. It's going to really come down to the preparation. Whoever draws Shadow Shield has to come in prepared for it. And it'll also be interesting to see if he decides to vary up his playstyle or stick to the same 6 shooters he's used all the way through the tournament. Because if you come in prepared, I mean, even then, you can't step into melee with him. He's very good at dodging all melee moves, and if he dodges your flame sword, welcome to 14 damage. Like, you can't get into melee with him, really. And he has it almost every single game.
Well, I'll tell you what. Hopefully I'll get paired up with him, and I'll avenge you, Gagnon.
I'm going to go the opposite and say my bold prediction is that more second seeds win than first seeds.
I like that.
I think when we look at the pool of players that have made it through into the top 8, it's pretty stacked. Even our second seeds have looked really strong. Like Group B, Math and Xanxus were miles ahead. I think Xanxus is going to be the first seed that does win, but Math is a very scary second seed to have. Group A has 2 pretty strong players coming through as well, and the second seed from Group C, it'll be interesting to see who's able to take it there because they're both very strong players as well. And Evolution came through on fire in Group D. I mean, he took it by storm there in the second week of the group. So I think the second seeds are just as scary in some ways as the first seed, like you said, poor choices. And so what's your knockout stage prediction then, Evolution? Or did we already do yours?
No, we haven't. I just hope I don't play Xanxus. So, the knockout stage, I can honestly say anyone who gets matched up against Xanxus is going to lose. And that's my straight-up prediction. I don't care if it's Bragan, Gagnon, poor choices, or not poor choices, but myself. It doesn't matter. It's going to happen. But as far as the rest of the plays go, it's really up in the air. I think Shadow Shield came in with a strong showing, but now that we know what he's all about, that Psycho Burst and that Dance of Death, I mean, I've been dealing with that crap for God knows how long. We all have. So now that we know what to expect, I think we can work around it. I'm not too concerned about Shadow Shield. Not taking anything away from him. He's a solid player, but you got to change that style up. As far as second seeds go with Bragan, you're a phenomenal player, dude. You're awesome. But it's up in the air. It's actually really quite the scary setup with first and second seeds right now.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. A lot of fun to see how it plays out. I guess my prediction would be, and this may be with a little tinge of bias, but I think Group A is going to come out and make the knockout stage alliance and start knocking people out. Group A.
That could be.
Esper 51 running for president with Bragan on the ticket.
I really think that Poor Choices and I have we are definitely looking at we're probably looking like the bottom end of the scoreboard right now, but that's fine.
Yeah, that's where I'd put us.
That's fine. We're going to take it, right, Choices?
Well, I mean, I don't think anybody should be underestimating Group D at this point. Group D showed to be very competitive, and the hottest fires make the hardest whatevers,
Hey,
Good old.
you only need to win the overall matchup one time.
Pearls are made from pressure, or whatever those,
Pearls are made
Diamonds?
from
Yeah.
saliva.
I believe you mean
Clams.
diamonds, actually.
both. Why not? Whatever.
But
Diamonds, pearls, hot fires, forge the coolest swords that show up in the mall.
I think as far as first seeds go, we're looking at a 3-0 from both Esper and Xanxus. Second seeds, I would have to say no bias involved here. But if matches don't go our way, then I would say Mr. Math and Gagnon are looking at top seats. If they do go our way, for second seeds, I believe I could take one with you, Bragan.
I like the confidence. So I guess before we wrap up the 1v1 tournament, I believe most of us were in the podcast except for you, Evolution, when we did the one before the tournament started. And for those of you who are in it and yourself, we'll come to you last since you weren't in the first one. Has your pick for winning the tournament changed after watching the group stage Guinan?
Um,
Who was your pick, and has it changed?
I can't remember my pick after all
I believe
this.
you picked Esper.
Did I
That
pick
was the
Esper?
controversy, as you didn't
No,
pick
no,
him
no,
out of
no.
group,
Oh, right.
but you picked him to win it all.
If he got out of group, I said that if he survived group, he'd take it. And
Yes.
that still follows. He survived group. You know, I was worried about his matchup against Bregan and Murder. Neither one was as bad as I worried. So he's got it. My buddy Esper's got it.
What about you, poor choices?
I originally picked Reborn, and I don't know. I'm getting a little worried, but if there's any player who has the technical prowess, looks at film, can readjust, and come back with answers for things that he's seen before, it's him. So as far as him, making it, beating a first-ranked player, I think he can still do it.
Yeah, I think he still has a good shot there. He has some first seeds that he might have a better shot against. I'd be really interested in seeing Guinan versus Esper, for example. And speaking of Esper, that was also my pick for winning the tournament. And after watching the group stage, I still think Esper has a good shot here. But I've been watching a lot of his 1v1s. He's had a few recorded versus Xanxus, and I watched all of Xanxus' matches. And right now, Xanxus is just absolutely on fire. The guy looks like a nearly uncontrollable monster in 1v1 right now. And he put a huge stamp of authority on his own group. And I'd have to say my prediction's changing. I think Xanxus takes the tournament over Esper even. Looked absolutely terrifying.
Yeah, I wasn't in the first podcast, but I was listening along, and as you guys were doing your predictions, I was doing mine. And I hate to take it away from my boy Esper. I'm good buddies with him, but I've had Xanxus as my top dog the whole time. I'm not going to change that up. I think Xanxus is going to take the whole thing, and I'm going to even make a bolder statement, and I'm going to say Xanxus does not lose a single map to take the whole thing.
That's bold, because he dropped several maps in the last tournament. Went 3-2 versus me and 3-1 versus Monkey as well.
Yeah, but that was before he was the
that's
Esper
bold.
on fire.
Maybe we'll get to see the rematch. If Guinan makes it out of Group C, he could go up against Xanxus again. Because for those of you who don't remember, that was a first-round matchup in the last 1v1 tournament. Was Guinan versus Xanxus. And Xanxus took that match 3-0. But they were very close wins from what I'm told. So we'll have to see how that plays out. Does anybody else have anything else they want to talk about the 1v1 tournament before we move on?
Just wondering when we will have those matchups.
So the matchups, we had the initial deadline, I believe I'd have to check the original post. I think it's Tuesday, this coming Tuesday, is the deadline to have matches done. And we don't have all the matches done, even though we have almost all of the seeds determined. We just need one seed to be determined still, but I would like to give everybody time to finish their matchups, even if it doesn't really shift the group around towards playoffs. Just give everybody a chance to finish the rest of their matches. So expect the draw to be done Tuesday or Wednesday for the next round of the tournament.
Okay, and one more thing. Am I safe in assuming that the second seed bans first?
Yes, second seed will be banning first.
Okay.
And moving on from that, I know Evolution, you had a tight bit of time to be with us. Do you need to get running?
Actually, I do. It worked out perfect. I had an hour. It is now 5:57 Eastern Standard, and it's time for me to go. So I'd like to thank you all for having me on the show, and I'm really excited to listen to the remaining portion of this podcast.
It's good to hear from
Yeah,
you.
thanks for being here. We had a great time with you here, and I look forward to seeing more Blazing Sword out of you in the knockout stage.
Give them the
I'm gonna let everyone know now that I'll be changing it up. I might bring an Excalibur next time.
Bringing the Excalibur for late game, and that is Evolution. Thanks for being here. And we'll go ahead and move on now to the tag team tournament. We've lagged a little bit behind here. We've got several matches to cover. We might have a little infographic up on screen that'll give you the rundown of the matches and their records so that you can see what we're going to be talking about here. We'll start with the beginning of the playoffs, because that's where we left off, was after the Swiss rounds, and there's been quite a few. So we'll talk about them match by match, and then we'll talk about the final four that we currently have. So let's talk about, we had Xanxus and Zexus versus Monkey and Silver Saint. Do you want to take this one, Guinan?
So we have Monkey and Silver Saint, who, if we're talking about fires under your butt, as you will, that's where these guys got out of the Swiss to get into the elimination rounds. Like, they weren't looking so hot after like round 2 or so, but they pulled it together. They got some great wins, and well, it put them against a really scary seed, right? Xanxus and Zexus. That's something intense. It ends up going 3-1 for Xanxus and Zexus. Monkey steals a win. I don't think we gave much hope to Monkey, despite their fire. Xanxus and Zexus has just been solid this whole tournament. But it was, the fact that they got there is impressive. So I don't think there's any bad feelings.
Yeah, it was the 8th seed versus the 1st seed, so it really didn't go much differently than we would have expected, but we do have to give a lot of props to Monkey and Silver Saint for taking a game there.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very tough team. Xanxus and Zexus had hardly lost any maps for quite a while, and Monkey and Silver Saint took a match there, and it sounded like it was a great series. We'll probably be able to maybe pull up a link to the description. We didn't have a video of that one, but Monkey does usually write up pretty long descriptions of the matches. So there should be one for this one as well that we can either have hovered during this portion of the video, or you'll be able to find it in a link in the description. The next matchup in the quarters was Gotrix and Silent 79 versus Mimic and Mesrath. If you'd like to cover that one, Poor Choices.
Yeah, so Goat and Silent took it over Mimic and Mesrath 3-2. This one for me, I think I had picked Mimic and Mesrath to beat Goat and Silent, but I've since come around on Goat and Silent, so I drafted them for my team in Civil War. Goat and Silent really showing that they had everything ready. Of course, they had some anti-cartwheeler stuff going on. We did end up seeing a little bit of that stuff later in the tournament, but those particular matches, it was pretty close, but they were able to pull it out.
Yeah, it was a fun one. I do believe we got the footage of that as well, recorded from Gotrix's perspective. Really good back and forth match. A lot of fun to watch. Definitely one of the more exciting series of playoffs so far, I would say. Do you have any thoughts on that series? Stuff that you remember from it, Guinan?
I just know that these are two teams that are interesting because I peg them for somewhat similar play styles. Despite Gotrix's newfound affinity for loving to mess with cartwheelers, they're both really defensive playing jumpers. Kind of playing an attrition-y game often, and counter-playing what their opponents bring. And I think that led to a close series that was, really fun to watch. I'll have some video for most of these up.
Yeah, it was a good series. I
Paralyzed
enjoyed
and
it.
silent.
Definitely back and forth. Was it 3-2 or was it 3-2-1? Wasn't there a tie in that one?
We actually, in the elimination rounds, have not had a draw unless it's not listed.
I know Gotrix had a couple of draws throughout this tournament, so maybe it wasn't listed. But we'll go ahead and move on to the next one. Since we're both in it, we'll let Poor Choices again cover this one. It's Murder Mastodon, Reborn Guinan, our other host here, versus myself and PDBCM. If you'll take it away, Poor Choices.
So this was one of my favorite ones. Bragan himself, I don't know if anyone recalls, actually did predict himself losing, and then predicted playing Reborn again in the finals if that were to be the case. This match started off, if you watch that Palace, it's textbook. Bragan and PD take an early win on Palace. They look like they've got everything together, and then the matches go back and forth. They're very close. It's a 3-2 win for Reborn. But as far as pushing,
It was another
Reborn
reverse sweep.
With some dirty
Yeah.
hanging.
Yeah, there was some dirty hanging, and it was
Yep,
another
on-
reverse sweep.
was that on
Panorama.
City? Yeah. Or
Yeah, we won Palace and Panorama, and Panorama was also pretty textbook clean from us. It actually ended with a double kill from, I think it was my Flame Sword at the end there, all in one swing, and then
So
City
very reminiscent
happened.
of the first time you guys had played. But
And then City happened.
yeah. the turning point of the match there. But
Yeah,
if you guys
so-
want to give your in-depth insights into that.
Talk a little bit more about the matches that you won on the second half, Guy, and I've blocked those from my memory because they're
So-
too painful.
So see, City was the first one that I purposefully built just for the scenario. I know these guys really well, and the kind of arsenals that they likely will bring, and so this was a backdraft hung that put them on the back foot rather early. I think we had like Bregan with a Tiger Strength Rian, and he doesn't want to lose 2 just to shoot a Rian and hope he hits. And so that's where they ended up getting, I believe, crystallized to death.
No, I died to an aura cannon at the last
that's
second.
true, the Aura Cannon.
It was actually a really close match. You always keep playing this one up like it wasn't very close, but Murder was at like 2 health and I was at like 3, and I had a dash. I failed to dash the aura cannon and took an aura cannon where he was shieldless in the open trying to make his own corpse run. And if I dashed and perhaps shot a reincarnation, it could have gone the other way. But it was a close match. It was really fun. It was really exciting, even though I lost there.
And after that, we just saw a tempo swing, and we got to the maps that are my comfort zone, and it showed pretty easily, I think, just that comfort zone in those later maps. And rock shots, mind you. Rock shots, I believe, were the end of the series.
You didn't kill the rock shot master with a rock shot, did you? Sacrilege.
I candidly can't remember.
We played rock shot on lane, and I believe that was the last game.
Yeah, but was that the final kill with the rock shot?
It was
No, lane
actually. It was a Willow rock shot combo.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a fun series. There's always going to be a little bit of salt between teams like that, but afterwards, it dissipates. It was definitely close. It was definitely fun. Some of the matches were a little bit more swingy than others, and then it ended up in their favor, and they continued on. Guinan and Murder Mastodon, despite a close series against us, have looked really good in this tournament so far, and excited to see whether they can take it. And I guess with that, we'll move on to our next match. I'll do this one because I haven't yet done one. Doom and Ronin played against Ghost and Multitude. And we didn't get any video footage of this. We didn't really get any written synopsis either. The most I got is I talked to Multitude, and when I asked how did the series go, he said it was 3-0 and it wasn't even close. So it sounds like Doom came hot out of the gates, and they swept Ghost and Multitude pretty hard there.
Right, when Doom is on his A game, it is very, very hard to play against that at that high level.
Well, they've been a swingy team. We know that there was some internal conflict on that team. We can't, go into that, one, because we don't know it, and two, it wouldn't be appropriate for the podcast if we did. But we know they haven't been able to get a lot of play time is the main factor there. And so when they come in and they do look hot, it's pretty oppressive. But when they don't, we've seen them falter a little bit. But we didn't see that against Ghost. It was a very dominant victory from what I understood there. And after that, we had the losers bracket start, and that was Mimic versus Monkey was the first round of that. Would you like to take that series, Guinan?
So these are some teams that I loved watching them come out of the Swiss. They were, I don't know if you'd say necessarily dark horses, but maybe, ones that we didn't expect to be top seeds. And they weren't. We had the 8th, and I guess Mimic is 4th seed, but, maybe there's some space between 3rd and 4th there. So we had a close matchup, I think. Mimic and Mesrath won 3-2, I believe.
Yeah, it was a 3-2.
Yeah.
Another very close series.
It was an impressive one. We see Mimic and Mazrath playing the rather safe defensive, and Monkey and Silver Saint still kind of giving their colorful arsenals. And they almost won. That almost came through, and having to stop that kind of stuff is really fun to watch, to be honest.
Yeah, it was a really exciting series. It's unfortunate we don't have any footage of that one. I would have loved to see that matchup. For those who are, in the tournament and listening to this podcast and haven't been recording your matches, please do so. It's absolutely fantastic for us as viewers, not even just, to have footage of you to strategize, but just as viewers to watch these matches. Very exciting, a lot of fun, especially some of these teams that we don't get to see of as much. So do what you can going to the next tournament, guys. When you reshuffle your teammates and that, I plead with you. Give us more matches to cast. We love doing it, and the viewers love watching you guys too. You always put on a good show.
Greg,
That
why don't you
said-
take the next one? I'll take the one after.
Well, I'm in the next one, so I should probably let you take that one.
Yeah, I don't know a lot about that one. I like the next one.
Okay, you want the next one? Okay, so I guess I'll cover my own match then. It was myself and PDDCM versus Ghost and Multitude. We do have footage of that one. Should be on the screen here for you for a moment, at least briefly. The match was pretty close in a way. Palace didn't get recorded, if I remember correctly. I didn't hit record in time, and it was a pretty long kind of attrition thing. I don't think me and PD actually died, but it took us a long time to really, close it out just because they were really resilient and continuing to make pickups even though they were dying. So they ended with like 7 kills to us, maybe 1 death. We did have to put them down quite a few times before they finally stayed dead. And then on Highway, actually ended up taking them out with double violent change from PD, and then we beat them on Panorama in another knockout slugfest there. And it ended 3-0 for us, but Ghost and Multitude did show up. They put up a good fight. They almost won Pano, almost won on Highway as well. They were very close there before the double violent change. Great series of matches. What are some of your thoughts on this one, Guinan, since Poor Choices doesn't know this series as well?
Well, my first thought to remember is that please try to get your matches recorded. It's really hard for us to not know what happened on Palace. No, but really...
You want to know what happened on Palace? Bragan stayed undefeated on Palace. Suck on them apples.
We don't know
Yes.
that. For all we know,
Ban
they just
Palace.
skipped Palace. Like, they could have played any map. They could have even played Sign instead. We don't know. That's all I'm saying. The match I remember seeing vividly was Panorama, where I don't know if maybe Ghost should have banned Pano, but his dashing shenanigans that are one of his strongest defenses is hard in those little corridors, and there were a lot of angles and timing that caught him really effectively.
Yeah, it was a fun set of matches. Does anybody else have anything else to add to that one, or should we move on?
We're good to move on.
All right, we're going to move on. Poor Choices was chomping at the bit to cover this next matchup.
I was, and here's why. The 3 games from
We gotta-
Panorama,
we haven't introduced who it
Refinery...
is.
Okay, Gotrix and Silent versus Xexus and Xanxus. There are 3 matches in a row that I think are just my favorite collective group of footage throughout the entire series for a couple different reasons. So you see the same arsenal out of Silent on Panorama, Refinery, and Lane. And you see them all, the same arsenal, back to back, which is accompanied by some of the funniest banter I've ever heard in any of these videos. You have mock arguments. You have Refusal saying he's picking any other arsenal, telling them what arsenal he's picking. I think at one point he says, I'm picking the same arsenal. And then he, in fact, does pick the same arsenal. It's just overall great. But the arsenal itself is that crazy jackpot arsenal I think we alluded to earlier with the experimentation. As far as match pace, these are also, and I'm focusing on those 3 because I candidly don't remember too much what happened after, or the first match in Palace, I believe. But for those 3, it is high-paced action. So you have just jackpots everywhere. You have, I believe Xanxus just cannot stay alive, and Xexus making great pickups, pins and needles the entire time in Panorama. I think there's 8 damage jackpots. It's just great, crazy, fast-paced to watch. On Refinery, that might be one of the quickest matches of the entire series. The jackpots do work, and you see, I believe, Xexus fall off the edge. Xanxus isn't able to get anywhere near him to make the pickup, and he instantly goes out there, I think, in the first 2 minutes of the game.
Yeah, it was actually a really hot series. It was 3-1 to Xanxus and Xexus, but it was really close to being a 3-2, or perhaps even being able to swing back in Goat and Silent's favor. They played really good Phantom Dust there, reading their opponents well, and just sticking to the same playbook. Their playbook may have had one play, but they played it well. What are some of your thoughts on that matchup, Guinan?
And the chaos, like, when you think about this, don't just imagine jackpot. I believe Panorama was jackpot ricochet laser.
Oh yes.
Which
Well,
is
there's also the paralyzed combo with the jackpot on Refinery.
Yeah, so these are just things that create some silly movement and some attacks that neither team knows what's about to happen, which is great. You don't want anyone
Yeah,
to
I
be able
believe
to
there was a
play
lot
this.
of team kills, just a lot of crazy damage going around. Super entertaining to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a really fun series. Xanxus and Zexus showing some weaknesses in previous rounds, which were exploited by Gotrix. And we'll see some of that come back later on in a match we're going to talk about a little bit later. But let's have the next one. Go ahead and take this one for us, Guinan.
So this next one, that is myself fighting Doom. Am I right?
Yes.
All right, so Murder and me take on a Doom and a Ronin. And this is a rematch. You know, we played before. People might have considered it an upset the first time. We did win in a 3-2 reverse sweep, right? Yeah, turned around on Refinery, then beat him on Lane and Sign. Well, this time we ended up going 3-1. I believe we lost on Panorama. We just got out meleeed when we were ricochet lasering. And so we learned something against Bregan, and that was Rock Shot is a good skill. So then we Rock Shotted Doom. That was effective. Rock Shot people. Learn this. But yeah, like we had a couple of, good pickup runs and long fights and exchanges. On Highway, because we banned Palace, I will remember that I began with 0 aura in a vibration hand arsenal, and or it was Quantum Decay, so I wanted a lot of aura, mind you. And I had Paralyze and Blaster on me within about 20 seconds. It didn't feel good. We won that one, mind you. So remember, you can come back from 0 aura starts.
Yeah. Yeah, you guys showed a lot of resilience in that series. It went really well. Doom still playing really well himself, but we definitely see a lot of the breakdown in their synergy between Doom and Ronin.
Mm-hmm.
And in the next match, because that's the next one as well, well, I guess I won't move on quite that quickly, but we do see that continue to be an issue for them in the tournament. What are some of your thoughts on this matchup? Poor choices.
Yeah, I mean, for all the people who thought it was a fluke the first time, I think Geigen really showed up and was able to show them that they weren't just a flash in the pan. A lot of solid gameplay. I will say Doom, what we were talking about him looking mortal in the past, when they're on it, they're on it. When they're off. I'm not sure, and I don't want to take away from Reborn or from Murder, but I'm not sure Doom was completely himself in those matches. But still, I mean, phenomenal gameplay and really well done in closing out that series.
Like, the one thing I would really like to praise Guinan, although I fear to do so as his ego inflates oh so easily, is that they really came in with a good read there. They had down to a T what they expected out of Doom and Ronin. They expected it, they countered it, and they played it very well. And I think that's something you definitely have to respect out of that team, is that they will get a read on you, and they will craft the right counters to it. And so you have to be very careful when facing them. And with that, we'll move on to the next one. We had, again, we don't have a whole lot of information on this one. It was Mimic and Mesrath versus Doom and Ronin. And the question we have, it was 3-1 for Mimic and Mesrath over Doom and Ronin. The question that we have is whether or not, with the continued losses, we know that the first loss versus Guinan and Murder hit them hard. We know that they didn't respond well to that first loss. And after that, it's the question whether, was it tilt or has Mimic and Mesrath really shown up for this one? I mean, it's hard to say that it was full tilt because they did take the series 3-1. Mimic and Mesrath, no matter what you say here, had to have played well in this series. They had to do well. They had some messy series leading up to this, 3-2 versus Gotrix and Silent, 3-2 versus Monkey and Silver Saint, both ranked in the lower half of the top 8. And they did pull out their cleanest win, ironically, against Doom himself. So what are some of your thoughts on that series, since you had played them just before that, Guinan?
So, it's interesting. We see Doom go up and down at some point. So, Doom lost to us in the 3rd round, but then beat you in the 4th round of the Swiss. And, I mean, I recall you telling me that felt imposing. It felt, like Doom. And then slaughtered Ghost by all sounds that we have. No recording. So when things turned around and went to a downswing, it seems like a downswing swung hard. I don't know if it's their synergy, it was personal relations, but Doom still was dodging stuff, hitting stuff, but it wasn't adding up to a match win. Like, they had all the big numbers, but none of it was equalizing. And Mimic and Mesrith play safe, they play smart, and they play together a lot. So, like, they're a very cohesive team, and I think they use that to levy an advantage. Really sad.
Yeah, I mean, no matter what, it's an impressive win.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard for us to really say how a lot of it went down. At the very least, next time, guys, give us what recordings you can, but if you can't get a recording, do try and give us at least a rundown of how things went, the general tempo. It's always good for us to be able to know, and then we can reflect that in here in the podcasts. But what are some of your thoughts, if you have anything that you'd like to add on that series, Poor Choices?
I do. I mean, again, without having real, too much knowledge of what happened, Mimic and Mesrith were one of my dark horse picks. I think we've seen some pretty streaky play out of them. But as someone himself who is not very consistent, I mean, if you're on your game at the right time, it doesn't matter what happened in the last game. I mean, if you're on it at the right point, that's all you need. And at this point, maybe Doom was a little off. Maybe they were on it. But 3-1 is a pretty dominant win. So I don't think anyone's going to say that Mimic and Mesrith are a give-me game. I mean, that's as pretty convincing as you need going forward. I think they've shown up in a way that not a lot of people expected, and I still think we could be surprised by them.
Yeah, so we'll move on to the next series. I'll let somebody else cover this one. Anybody want to take my series?
So Bragan and Goat play, and oh gosh, I don't have the exact record because this isn't updated. Was it 3-0?
3-0, I believe.
Actually, I remember this one now. I know the story. It came back to me. This is the soft 4-0. So they play Palace Highway Panorama. There is some weird lag the first time. I think, was there like Sign of Saints flying around like crazy is what I can remember. And, Bragan wins. And they decide, let's replay it. Like, that lag was unfair. That was unreasonable. And Bragan wins Palace. And,
Twice.
It's twice. So we have 2 Palace wins. I'm really surprised didn't ban one of the forefront maps. I mean, these are the ones we know that Bragan is strong on. These are the ones that I wouldn't want to have to play all 3. I'd want to be able to go to the latter half with him. And, it showed up. Bragan and PD are, as of our last game we saw, top of their game. Losing to us does not necessarily mean that they are a nobody team by any means. And they show that right here, because Goat's playing solid, but Bragan, like he does in the 1v1, he makes you play his game, and his game has rocks.
Right. So you don't spit in the wind, you don't tug on Superman's cape, and you don't play Bragan on Palace. How do I reach these kids, Guyan? How do I reach these kids? So we see, I think it was actually a really good show of sportsmanship, though. They are willing to play. And Silent and Goat take a step back like, hey, it's unfortunate we're replaying this. If we win, we'll play it a third time. It'll be best 2 out of 3 on Palace because of the lag issue. I just liked that overall, and I want to give everyone props for the sportsmanship and the maturity of that beginning of the match.
Yeah, that was Silent's idea too, so credit to him. That might be something that we're going to incorporate in rules of future tournaments, perhaps. It's something that I know we're definitely going to talk about, the tournament organizers together. But it was a fun series. It was really amicable. Goat and I are old friends, so we were able to laugh and joke about it at the end. I know Gotrix was wanting to do it in all party chat. He tried to. We had 3 people on board, and then Davio PDDCM wasn't willing to do it. He wanted to do it in party chat and just talk crap on each other the whole time, and I think that would have been fun. We did get quite a bit of that in the lobby, and then we had lots of fun afterwards. So it was a really amicable series. It's sad to see them depart the tournament that way. I think that's one thing that we haven't pointed out with some of these losses. Monkey and Silver Saint, Ghost and Multitude, and Gotrix and
Doom,
Silent. Yeah, Doom as well have all been eliminated from the tournament, and we're down to our final 4. And then we'll go ahead and cover the last series, I know you can't really remark too much on it because you haven't had a chance to see it yet, unless you've been watching it in the background during this podcast. Poor choices.
That would have been a really good idea. I
Well,
have not.
your name proved a little too true, and you
Oh,
didn't make the
jeez.
right choice, and you only paid attention to the podcast. So this series, really exciting series. I know some people might still be watching it or haven't watched it. If you haven't watched the series and you don't want to spoilers, we are going to spoil the match that happened today between Murder Mastodon and Reborn Guinan versus Xanxus and Zexus,
Pause
the ultimate
now.
rematch. The ultimate rematch of the century. Guinan and Murder Mastodon came out hot out the gates versus Xanxus and Zexus. Palace was close. Xanxus and Zexus tried to break out of their playstyle and play a cute memory lapse deck, but Guinan proved to be more resilient. They hit him with the arm roast to get rid of the friendships. They tried to return to nature themselves, but Orb didn't allow Xanxus, and there's a little bit more arm roast shenanigans and things like that. The Enviro gets taken out, and eventually Guinan pops out Zexus, who was almost out of attacks at that point anyway, and they are able to then pressure 2v1 popping capsules while Xanxus tries to fight off Murder at the same time. And they close out on Palace.
Just as before you move on, and they were playing friendships with Rian, Seal of Death, and Sign of Saints, so a very unfamiliar to them playstyle. But Murder was definitely caught off pretty off guard, so we had to definitely plan around it mid-match.
Yeah, it was a really fun match, and then Highway, Guinan and Murder stamped their authority 2-0 pretty hard. We had a real nail-biter on Refinery, and spoilers again for those like that. That series, that map, really came down to the wire. Guinan and Murder really looked on the back foot several times, and then Xanxus and Zexus looked like they were on the back foot several times. But Xanxus and Zexus closed that map out and do pick up a win there. But then after that, on lane, despite a good early start from Xanxus and Zexus, a tight strategy involving yet another jackpot, credit to Gotrix, takes the win on lane and allows Guinan that is Murder and Guinan, a 3-1 win over Xanxus and Zexus, who have been unseated from their lofty perch. I know they've liked it up there, being revered as, the gods of Phantom Dust lately, but they were knocked from that perch solidly by Guinan and Murder Mastodon, who now remain undefeated in the knockout stage. So I think the good transition there is, before we talk about like a winner and a dark horse, let's talk about our final four teams here. Why don't you take that first, Poor Choices?
Okay, so Guinan and Murder. I mean, I've played with them a bit. I knew what was coming on that lane. I've yet to watch how it played out, but I've definitely been a victim of that arsenal at least once. I think this is a team now who's solidly at the top. I believe they get an extra defeat going into the semifinals or the finals. So that's going to be really hard to unseat them. I think we also now everybody is really aware of how prepared they get for these matches. I mean, clearly it looks like they kind of took Gotrek and Silent's plan and tweaked it to be even more highly effective against Xanxus and Zexus. So really just a powerhouse team. Mimic and Mesrath, again, for me, remain my dark horses. We don't have as much footage on them. They're a bit more streaky, but still a very solid set, especially if they're able to put away Doom. Bregan from the beginning was a little low on himself, but he's clearly been able to be pretty dominant even from the bottom of the loser's bracket there, knocking out quite a few powerhouse teams in his own right. If Sandal is the mad professor, then Bregan's at least the mad graduate student of Phantom Dust. I think he puts in a lot of research. He's got a lot of different things, and he's clearly the most dominant force Palace has ever seen. So got to give him and PD credit for that. And then who is and Xanxus and Zexus, obviously counting them out. counting them out would be a very poor
Well,
choice.
they already lost a match,
it's
and
not-
everybody forget about them. They lost a match. They're no longer
We were
important.
talking about the one-on-one. Zanks is looking like one of the most dominant forces in one-on-one. I know that they came into this match probably a little later with a little less momentum than they normally do. And they did already have a win against Reborn, so maybe they weren't as hungry as they normally are. But I think thinking that they're not going to come with an even higher intensity would be, a bad judgment.
A poor choice.
Yes, I didn't want to keep using that, but it's just so apt.
What are some of your thoughts on the Final Four, Guy?
So I'm really interested. Before the last couple matches, I've actually been scrimming with Mimic and Mesrath. I don't see them on all the time, but the day or two before, we've been putting in some good games, and I've seen their playstyle evolving. They've been getting stronger each match, honestly, getting more solid every time I play with them. I mean, Bregan and Goat, like I said, they messed up Ghost real bad. They showed Gotrix what's for. They definitely could continue that streak. Zexus and Zanxus, they had a close win to us and then a loss here, but we definitely see some parity. And so if they meet us in the finals, that'll be a really hype match. But they have a hard matchup beforehand. If Mimic beats Bregan, that says a lot, that they are stepping up hard. If Bregan wins, then Bregan versus Zexus and Zanxus, this could be a first time. We have a lot of repeat matches, but this will be a really good first time match that I've been looking forward to. And I can't even predict it, to be honest.
But if you had to.
If I had to? If I had to predict it, I have Bregan winning 3-2 against Zexus and Zanxus.
Poor choices. I want your prediction there. Do they ban Palace?
I think if anyone should listen, if they listen to me and ban Palace, they win. If they do not, then they
No, but
lose.
what's the prediction? Do they ban Palace?
No, nobody listens to me.
They've also...
Then I win the series. It's that simple.
I mean, they felt alarmed on City, it seems like. They banned City against us. They've had times with City where they didn't feel very safe. And so you're also a strong showing in City. So it is kind of hard to make that decision when you have two strong early maps.
Okay, but here's my thinking. It's not where you're the most comfortable. It's where your opponents are the least comfortable. That's all I have to say about that.
Maybe. I mean, for all the memes and the jokes here about Palace, I'm actually not a player who really enjoys Palace like a lot of other players do. That's all they play. I know sometimes I'll forget to switch the map, but I love the back half maps. I love Refinery. I love City. The numbers don't really show it. Almost, I think 90% of our wins are in the first three maps, Palace, Highway, and Panorama. But we enjoy playing those maps. We practice them hard. We've been putting a bigger emphasis on those. And when we do practice, we've been putting a bigger emphasis on the back half maps. So, I mean, for all the jokes, yes, if you don't ban Palace, we do have a good record there. But, we're going to be prepared on any map. And I think that's the same of any team. Yes, there might be some maps they favor or some maps they disfavor. And we definitely have a map that we don't like. But we have good, strong ideas and performances on other maps as well in practice. So I think it'll be fun once we play.
Just saying, make Bregan salty, listen to Portrait. What do you have to lose? There's nothing to lose. Just try it.
So,
somebody try it.
So here's the thing. Bregan doesn't get to play Palace. Bregan is sad. Bregan loses on Palace. Bregan is sad. There's only one option, Bregan.
What?
I
ban Palace myself?
Just play Rockshot. Ban it yourself. Maybe that's it. So
I should ban Palace. That's what I should do. Protect my record.
No one would know what was coming.
Just ban Palace from every tournament match ever, and I'm always undefeated on Palace, and you just got to sit there and wonder, will he play me there?
So we have remaining 3 matches, right? So, or 4, depending.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about the format of what's going to happen here to clean it up. Yeah, take that away.
So we have Mimic and Mesrath versus Bregan and PDDCM. This is an elimination match. The loser is done. The winner of that match faces the other one-loss team, which is Zexus and Zanxus. So either Bregan wins twice, Mimic wins twice, or Zexus beats that winner. Those are the 3 options. Then it's going to be my team, me and Murder, against whoever wins, and they will be at a 1-game disadvantage. It will be like a best 2 out of 3 where they've already lost one, because we have to lose twice to be double eliminated.
I mean, unless Mimic and Mesrath make it there, you will have won against the team that faces you in the final. So
Very true. Yes.
it's a fair assessment there. Yeah, they'll have already lost once to you in the knockout stage, and so they will have to beat you twice in order to win the tournament. With one win, you would clinch the tournament right there. So you're in an excellent position through excellent play to be able to take it there. But that said, considering the final 4 remaining teams,
It could go anywhere.
yeah, I was going to ask, because I did ask Evolution before the podcast, before he had to take off, because I knew it would make it to this portion. Who is your winner, and who is your dark horse to take the upset?
I think I should go last.
So, yeah, we'll let Poor Choices go first.
I think Reborn is in the best position. I think they're Reborn and Murder are the obvious pick to be winner. I do want to put this idea out there, and maybe we could get it on Facebook and Twitter. Hashtag call your shot. You know, maybe the first match you guys just play Scream of Evil and just kill yourself so you're also at 1 loss, so we could have a super final showdown. You know, let's try to guilt you guys into doing that. That'd be fun. But I think you coming in with the biggest advantage. You're a very strong team. You would be my pick for winner. I'm going to pick Xanxus and Zexus. I know Bregan is normally my dark horse here, but I think Xanxus and Zexus are going to come
They're going
out
to learn the
hungry.
secrets of banning Palace.
Yep, they're going to come out hungry, and they're going to have some answers, and they're going to have an intensity we haven't seen in a little while.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see if that does light a fire under them. Their first loss in the tournament. I know they came in pretty confident, maybe a little cocky. So we'll have to see how they respond to the failure. You know, if they bounce back, or if it does to them what we've seen do to some other teams, and they put themselves in a rut and continue to lose. So I think that'll be really interesting to see out of them. And for me, I guess I'll do Evolutions first. I mean, his honestly sound almost completely backwards to me. He put myself and PDDCM as his favorite to win it, with Guinan and Murder as the dark horse, because he says he has no faith in them, even with a match.
Did he
What
know
do
our
you call that?
result?
A padded match. I think so.
Yeah, I think we spoiled it at the beginning.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he heard it. Yeah, he put myself and PDGCM as the winners, and Guinan and Murder as the dark horse. And for me, I would actually, and I don't say this. Okay, well I'll give you my real response second. My first response is Guinan and Murder are obviously the favorites to win, but I'm still the anime protagonist. So we're coming for you. I've got a list, and the first person on that list is Mimic and Mesrath, and then I'll be coming for Xanxus and Zexus. The anime protagonist, and after the third time, we're going to beat Guinan and Murder.
I will say that you do have the advantage, and I think you've had the longest road back to the finals. So you are getting in more tournament level matches. You clearly are riding some momentum. I mean, if you get that momentum and you get through Xanxus and Zexus, then you are a dangerous team.
You know, perhaps.
Sure.
The real answer, I would say, Guinan and Murder is the favorite, and taking myself out of the loop because I don't like making predictions on myself in reality, I would say the dark horse would be Mimic and Mesrath. Again, we don't have a lot of footage of these guys. It could have been a very tilted Doom that they beat, or it could have been an on-point Doom, and a renewed energy Mimic and Mesrath took them down 3-1. And so if that team is able to show a higher level of play than what have seen, which is limited, there's not a lot of footage of them, for one, so it's hard to get a great read. They could come in with a scrim partner that you guys don't know about, and come in with some really interesting builds if they wanted to. And if they show a level of play that would have taken down Doom early in the tournament, because remember, they did lose 0-3 to Doom in the very first round of the Swiss rounds. Don't forget that. They lost to him in the beginning of the tournament, and that was another one where we didn't get a whole lot other than it wasn't close. They, since then, in the tag tournament, have grown, and they took down, in who knows what fashion, 3-1 against Doom. So they're my dark horse. If they are able to show a higher level of gameplay in the next game against me and take the win there, I think they're my dark horse to win it. Like, they would have almost an even chance at that point if they're able to take us down. I think they're a very strong team and have a good shot. And that said, I know Guinan said he wanted to go last. What are your predictions on winner and dark horse?
So I think it's been mentioned that like I do a lot of research. If I had an intern, it would be Bregan. And Bregan is really good at getting reads. He also organizes and watches like every single one of these videos. That gives him a lot more information. I'm gonna be honest, I haven't watched every video. I think Bregan might be the only person who has. And that helps him a lot. And I could see him, even though Mimic and Mesrath don't have a lot of footage, I think there's just some raw skill and synergy. He's been on fire. You know, the 3-0 against Ghost and Multitude isn't nothing. Or the 3-0 against Gotrix isn't nothing. Like, these are 4-0, mind you. So I could see him being on a roll. I think that if he prepares well for Zexus and Xanxus, and that's the only way to do it, that I think he could take the top spot. He knows everybody involved. He knows them intimately.
Did you just up? Sorry.
No, it's okay. Yeah, I made a dirty joke. You let that sit. At the same time, Mimic and Mesrath don't have the video. Bregan doesn't know them. You know, not very many people do. Like I said, I've played them, but sparingly, sparring. So I could see them coming out, being able to watch everyone else, but not have as much info on them. They have a very horse of a darker color look to them.
I do think you just downgraded Bregan from the mad graduate student to the mad TA.
Take it as you will.
The mad unpaid intern. Not mad because he has, crazy ideas, but mad because he's unpaid.
Just upset.
He's just angry. He got up at 5 a.m. this morning in order to help prep somebody for their match, and he's just angry. That's all there is to it. No money in his pockets, no skill to his name. He's just mad. I think that mostly wraps it up there for us. Is there anything else anybody would like to talk about? Any of the topics we talked about. Anything you'd like to touch on? Civil War, the 1v1, tag tournament, the Final Four?
Just, call out Math. I'm going to beat him 3-0.
If that matchup happens, that'll be an interesting one to see.
I really hope it doesn't. I don't think that's how it'll go down.
Any call-outs or final thoughts of your own, Guinan?
Well, I remember something that was said earlier on this podcast by some poor choices. When Mimic and Mesrath beat Doom and Ronan, well, we said it could be Doom and Ronan, not being their strongest. He said 3-1 is a dominant showing. There was a 3-1 play today. Remember that.
Gosh.
Ooh, Guinan, every time he beats the top dog, just floats into the clouds. But honestly, that's where their placement is right now, is at the very top of the table. So it's hard to really criticize it.
No.
They have looked good. In my opinion, probably the favorites to win this tournament. Although the anime protagonist is coming for you.
I just want to say Evolution used Ego Burst on you, but thankfully you had Fortress of Ego. Fortress of Arrogance.
Fortress of Arrogance. Erases all melee and ranged attacks and blocks for 10. Fortress of Arrogance. And I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in and listening to our coverage. And we'll come at you next time with the wrap-up of the tag tournament and the 1v1 tournament.
Yeah, I imagine our next video you will see likely, if the tag is going too slow, you'll see the first elimination round of 1v1. Otherwise, it will probably be right before the finals. Bregan will get his match in. Sexus will get his match in. We'll give you the scoop.
Yeah. Thanks, guys, and we'll see you next time.